Hello and welcome to the skating lesson, Olympic men's event edition. Jonathan Beyer, welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm very emotionally distraught, but I am here and ready to discuss several important issues.
Yes. I feel like it's been a long Olympics already with this team event. I'm exhausted. I don't know.
It's made me wonder if I'm too emotionally invested in skating because this has really been plaguing my personal life. It's really like I walked around all day yesterday with a heavy heart and I was like, Jonathan, you care too much. But you can't help it. This Olympics, first with the pairs and the highs and lows, and now with the men, I just couldn't expect that. Insanity.
I went into the men's event not really hoping for anyone to do particularly poorly or well. I was more amazed to see, excited to see the competition, but I didn't feel emotionally behind any skater, which made it interesting to watch. It also felt a little exhausting.
Yeah, it was the same way. I was ready to sit back and just sort of let it play out. And what we always hope for, like we mentioned in the preview, is in our dream of dreams, everyone skates lights out. And then it's truly down to, taste and style and these sorts of things. But that was not
I felt
the
like
case.
it was starting to happen in the short program, and it happened in the pairs, but it did not happen in the long. But let's start with the man of the week, Evgeny Zhenya Plushenko. What did you make of his withdrawal from the competition? What did you make of that whole ordeal that we witnessed this week?
I think was it you? Someone was like, I really hope he goes into acting.
Yes.
And I agree 100%. I had major issues with this. And not because he had to withdraw. Mm-hmm. You cannot take away what he's done. You can hate his style. You can love his style, but I appreciate him. My problem was not that he was injured. Of course he was. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. He just skated the best he could in that team event. It was so impressive. He's as old as I am, so Lord knows that's really old. And I think, of course, his body, it was taking its toll on him. My issue was that we played out this high drama during the short program warm-up instead of beforehand when it would have been possible for Kovtun to step in. Mm-hmm. And now all these stories about, Kovtun wasn't ready, he couldn't have gone on anyway. I think it's all ridiculous. And he was acting. He set up the back comment in the interview after the team event. Mishin called over the cameras so we could look at his scar before he went on the ice. And, even the way, because we could hear, I don't know if they showed it on NBC primetime, but in the live NBC coverage in the morning with Tara and Johnny, that you could get the sound for when he went over to the referee and he was like, I can't skate, because of my back.
Yeah.
And it was so flippant and so nonchalant that I was like, this is planned. If you were just coming to terms with all of this as it happened, I think it would have played out very differently.
I definitely think he knew going into the night that he was likely not skating, but the whole thing I believe was staged completely. I do believe though, I don't know if his axle mistake was real or not. I mean, it's possible, but I think he was injured. I just don't think it was ever possible for him to physically do the 4 programs.
For him to have done a whole practice without jumping. I mean, come on, this isn't their first Olympics, obviously.
And I question why he didn't pull out. That's the only thing I'm really curious about, is why he didn't pull out after the team event. Would he have had repercussions because of the comments that he made earlier that we were all expecting him to pull out?
Was the Federation nervous that they were going to get...
Or was he just setting up his career by getting his last bit of attention? I mean...
But the thing is, it lacked a little bit of the drama it could have had. Even as it played out, you're kind of like, oh... And
because audience he seemed so okay with it.
Yeah,
he was completely fine, as if he knew this was going to happen for months. And I think he's a smart person, and I don't believe he really did think that he would contend for a medal. I think he was pretty smart. He's a smart guy, and he often hasn't shown up at the World Championships the last couple of years, so he doesn't know how he would stack up against the men. But was there.
Given the dismal performances we saw, he might have played more of a factor than we anticipated.
But I think the practice sessions were going differently at that event, exactly. And he might have done well, but still, if they judged fairly, I don't think he would have done that well. If they actually
not
gave
well
him
enough. Yeah, if he could leave on a gold with the team, and
Yeah, I mean, I think it ended the right way for him. Unfortunately, he didn't pull out at the correct time. But
The
it's funny.
timing, it was the timing that made me really angry and made me
Yeah.
feel like he was a poor
Yeah,
sportsman.
the Russian journalist Elena Vaitsukovskaya was saying that Plushenko's wife was backstage, and it all seemed extremely planned out. They were in the mix zone, and no one likes her. So they're very. The Russian press doesn't really like his wife. Her ex-husband's in jail for some shady
Oh,
business.
oh.
So
Now there's your reality show.
she is a
Forget Tessa and
character that we need to
Scott.
pay
Yeah.
attention to. So,
Okay.
yeah, the
Okay.
Plushenko reality show, I'm sure, would be epic. But obviously, he has a career ahead of him. So Tarasova was
It's
saying
whatever he
he needs to
chooses.
support his family and be able to skate in shows in the future. And I'm sure it's not the last we're going to see about Evgeny Plushenko, but I will certainly miss the drama of witnessing him in competition because it has been extremely entertaining.
Just ridiculous. Yeah.
But the other main drama for the short program concerned Jeremy Abbott from
Just when you
the
thought it
US.
couldn't get any more ridiculous, that was the thing that was so surprising. But
It was
okay.
high drama. The other night, Jeremy Abbott obviously had a fall on his opening quad toe. He was down for the count for quite a bit. What was your take on that entire situation? I mean, he now has this entire hero persona and narrative going on. So what was your take on his short program? Because I think we need to divide the programs up.
Okay. So wait for his post-long program comments until we get to the long program. Okay, good to know. It's nice to budget all these feelings accordingly. So it seemed like he was having a good warm-up.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't really tell because everyone was like, Plushenko. But in the background, it would appear that he was doing a pretty good warm-up.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's, again, the look he had when he did the short program in Nationals put me at immediate ease. Mm-hmm. Just his deportment, his facial expression, his communication with Yuka had a very different vibe since he's been here. And he had like a nervous, tense look, and I thought, we're already gone. We're already toast. I can see it. Mm-hmm. So he takes the ice, he sets up for it, you see him hesitate. I've never seen him fall like that, where he actually came out forward. And I mean, we can say what we want about it and about his consistency or whatever, but that fall looked like it was not fun.
Yeah.
That was a hideous fall. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's that dazed moment when he didn't know what to do. You could see dilemma. Do they stop the music? Does he go to the referee, start the program from that point? Is he about to withdraw from the Olympics and make it 2 people in a row? I was just unsure as to what was going to happen. And he kind of got up. It looked like he was like crying almost, or, and then all of a sudden he delivered it like someone just smacked him upside the head and was like, just skate your program already. Yeah. And as he did it, I was curious. He did a pretty good job of catching up and getting in points. I think he missed some levels on the spins, or, because he was making up for time and things like that. But I was like, it just is one more question about the puzzle that is Jeremy Abbott.
Yeah. I was glad to see him fight. He finally fought. I mean, he's usually someone who makes a mistake and the mistakes rack up throughout the program. But I felt that the mistake should never have happened.
And it was, again, because especially this type of mistake, it wasn't, sometimes we've seen him pretty much rotate, just get a little two-footed, fall and bounce back up. And
I think he opened up in the air. I mean, that was.
I mean, you just saw him tilt like crazy, and then to land forward like that, I'd never seen from almost anyone, I think. And it was I don't know in his mind if he was still intending to do that combo, but there was certainly no room for it. He was already he would have been in the barrier by the time he landed the quad, even if he had done it cleanly. So. I don't know.
I mean, his comments indicated that he was going for medal, and it looks like he was probably going for that combination. And it was good to see him think on his feet as well as he did. Yeah. And he also made a comment that he thought that the music was actually going to stop, and then it didn't. And he finished, and I think that it was very admirable of him to finish. But, Tarasova earlier in the week had said something about Yuka Sato, and she made a comment that people should blame her. And at first I thought like that was a rude comment. And then, but when we can get in this with Jeremy's comments in the long program, something clearly isn't working. And I think transitioning to the long program and his comments afterwards, Yuka made a comment about, well, how can people say that he chokes if he's won nationals 4 times? And he has won nationals 4 times and he's performed brilliantly. I think
4 times he's performed brilliantly.
Yes.
He's performed a lot more than 4 times is the problem.
Exactly. And unfortunately, when we're looking at coaches for the future and who's going to bring our skaters to the top after Frank Harrell retires, we can't just send everyone to Frank. Who is going to do this? And so much of a coach's job is psychological. And obviously, with Jeremy, he has the physical talent. We've seen how brilliantly he can do. And personally, I think that Jeremy has all the talent to have been a multiple-time world medalist, multiple-time Grand Prix final champion. Easily. I think he's as talented as Patrick Chan, and I don't.
And the judges like him. And if he ever proved himself on a consistent basis, like we were saying in the team event, they would reward it like gangbusters.
He would
all
have so
of those
many
component
medals.
scores would be so high.
I believe he is way more talented than Evan Lysacek, and certainly more talented than Johnny Weir. And they both had better track records internationally than Jeremy did. And it's interesting. I just don't think that Yuka and Jason have the experience to know how to handle this situation. Because one thing about...
Because it is a unique situation.
It's a unique situation. Yeah. Every athlete is different in terms of their psychology, and there's no one way. And I was just talking to a few coaches about this and how they approach different types of athletes. And they were saying that, one thing that you can do is if you have someone like Jeremy who has struggles with nerves, is that so much of this is their intention in practice. How do they approach their different programs? How do you make them important? If he has issues with nerves, you bring in judges, you bring in, everyone from the rink to watch him, and you play with different things to try to make it so that it's not to minimize the competition, but it's to maximize the pressure,
the practice, of course,
and make it more important so that it's the same mindset rather than a shift in the mindset.
I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No.
I feel like if it was that simple, it could have been done. I think this is more than, I got nervous. Well, this has to be something so much greater.
But his problems, when someone is that talented, it comes down to you have to tweak the preparation, because everyone knows how talented Jeremy is, and we've seen him perform so well, but why can he only do it once a year? And that goes back to the coach and a more experienced coach like a Tarasova or a Frank figuring out what is going to work and, changing something that they do, whether it's, if he does multiple programs, is it doing one a day but making it super important, or making him do more so the muscle memory, so that he's super prepared, so that he, has the muscle memory to rely on. There's something there that over 5 years that he spent with Yuka wasn't tweaked. And it's almost...
But it wasn't really with Tom Z either. We sort of
Well, no, and I think that, maybe neither one was the right person for him, or maybe they just needed to change it. I don't think that you need to be nasty to someone in order to get them to succeed. But I think Taras was saying that you need to be harder. And I know the Russians will be very hard on someone, and then right before they go out, they tell them how amazing they are, for the days before, and they try to build them up after they tear them down. And maybe that's not the right approach for everyone, but I think that certainly something in Jeremy's... I'm glad that he had that good skate. Unfortunately, I think he's just capable of so much more than that. And he was talking about his critics, and now he gives his middle finger to the critics. And I read that article.
That was a big misstep. And I thought to myself, again, for those super fans, or whatever we're calling ourselves, we know this track record. We could see this coming. It happens every season, blah, blah, blah. We've been through the frustration. But somehow, because of the way this played out, it actually made him very sympathetic to the average Olympic audience who's just tuning in. And it's like, oh, devastating, but what a beautiful message about getting up when you've fallen down.
Which you let other people say for you, but Jeremy said himself in the press.
Well, I thought was awkward. At that moment, I thought, okay, if this is the angle you're going to play this, he did a clean long and, redeemed himself and all this sort of stuff. I thought, okay, you know what? maybe this is his angle. This is his exit. He's about to promote, and his life's message will be get up when you fall.
Which is great.
Which is great until you say, I want to say F you to all of my critics and give them the middle finger. Now we've lost sympathy, and now you're just a jerk. And obviously I'm hypersensitive to this because, shocker, I am not an Olympic level skater. Mm-hmm. But I'm allowed to watch skating and respond and feel things and assess things and know what I like and what I don't like. So whenever a skater is like, well, you can't say anything rude about me because you don't skate. You don't know what it's like. And it's like, well, I don't know. As an opera singer, I stand up in front of 4,000 people and sing high notes with an orchestra. I mean, I'm not saying it's the same as Olympic pressure, but it is certainly pressure. I know what pressure is, and to say no one else can do it, well, other people can do it. Yeah. And it was like when Megan Duhamel, someone criticized her skating for something, and she commented, well, let's see you do a triple Lutz. And I was like, oh, what? So we're not allowed to.
And while there's truth in that, there also is people do different things throughout their life where they do approach pressure. And I felt, though, that NBC was playing this really sympathetic thing. And Jeremy, when he said the FU thing to his critics, it's like, are you saying FU to your critics or your own personal demons? Because really, right. I read that article and felt, oh my God, he doesn't get it. Because except for like the Christine Brennan article where I could see people it really shifting, right. If a lot of times when people criticize Jeremy and they might express frustration, it comes from a place of knowing what he's capable of.
Because we love his skating so much.
And you see the talent, and he has the technique, and he has the goods, and he is a wonderful, wonderful skater. Now, when Andrea Joyce asks him, were you impacted by Plushenko? Was it too tough? Okay, while they're playing the likability nice angle that NBC seems to want everyone to be super nice and making excuses for people, what they're really saying is that they don't think that Jeremy Abbott is mentally tough enough to go out there and deliver after someone else did well. And he actually didn't take that excuse. But when you treat someone with kid gloves like that, you're actually saying, I don't think Jeremy Abbott's capable of doing that. Right. I'm sorry, but if Evgeny Plushenko, if he had to go after Yagudin skated well, we never would be like, oh, that's going to be too tough for him, because we think intrinsically that Evgeny Plushenko is capable of doing it. Now, I actually think that Jeremy is capable of doing it if they tweaked something along the way. I think that something in their preparation wasn't working and needed to be changed, right. But I think he is capable. We saw that he was capable of doing a clean job. And we know he's capable of even doing better than what he did at the Olympics. I mean, we saw how good he was at Nationals. Right. So I think that they're missing the point there. That just because you're saying, I mean, I've criticized him before, and I'll own it. I mean, I think and when I do that,
it's frustrating as a fan to know what it could be.
Sure.
And it's more than about one competition. Yeah. Because like you say, the judges do judge on reputation. And if he was able to deliver, the bump they could give him would be so immense, And again, I like to give coaches or blame coaches, but I don't know that Yuka is... I mean, it's tricky because she had Jeremy and Alyssa, who are very sensitive skaters in their skating and maybe in their life. And so it's hard to know, is it because she accommodates that they are drawn to her, or does that
she is very
club
nice
foster that?
And positive, and it's not, maybe appropriate to tear someone down, right when they're off the ice, but, talking to people who know Frank, saying, if Jeremy laid on the ice like that and was Frank's skater, when he got off the ice, Frank would be like, that hip better be broken. Yeah. And I don't doubt that he was injured for a second or hurt, and I think that that's very real.
It was shock. Yeah.
But there are athletes who are warrior competitors, and then we treat some athletes differently, nicer.
Well, because then it's the question of what is skating, right? So I think I said this in one of our other episodes, but I think that Jeremy is a performer. Jeremy is a dancer. Jeremy isn't necessarily a competitor. That's, I don't think, what draws him to skating. I think what draws him to...
that he wants those results. And if you say you want those results and then you don't do it, people are going to start... Because, I'm sorry, he once gave a I remember it was really jarring. It was the fluff piece before 2012 Nationals, and all of a sudden, Jeremy Abbott, who has had a history of going up and down, was a little bit cocky on TV and said, yeah, I'm going to get my third title, and then I'm going to go and get a fourth and a fifth. And while that's nice, I was like, oh my God, like that's an interesting psychological thing because we've seen him fall, but then he's cocky here, and he did deliver that year, but it's fascinating. Like what point, it's like someone's not digging into what the real issue is to figuring him out and how to do that.
Right.
And that's what I say when Yuka might not be the right coach for him. She might not have the experience of knowing how to turn it on with him.
Well, or she's a coach, not a psychologist.
But most of successful coaching, if you read Phil Jackson's book, he wrote
like Gracie is.
Well, if you read the book 11 Rings by Phil Jackson, he talks all about how he coached every single athlete on the Lakers differently and how he gave them different books to read and what they each needed for Kobe to do well or Shaq to do well or someone else. And it's the same thing. Talking to coaches, most of what they do is psychological rather than just technique.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, because again, the technique never seemed to be the problem.
No, it was never
just
the problem.
When he chose to apply it or seemingly was unable to apply it.
Yeah,
and it's frustrating. It's very frustrating because you know what? And again, it's about what is your Olympic story. When NBC shows us, some person that's, achieved all this success despite the odds, but they still finish 10th or something, but it's a personal victory and we're rooting for them anyway. United States figure skating has a really impressive past.
Yeah.
So for our men to be 9th and 12th, we're not amused by personal triumph. We're annoyed we don't have a man on the podium.
Well, that's currently a problem with the Federation. And if you see, there's a lot of inter-club politics that happen. And it's interesting is that if you look at Skate Canada, the skaters that they have chosen to promote politically in the press, at their nationals, they seem to bet on the right skaters. And we seem to have this way of betting on the wrong ones or not promoting the youth when we should. We kept Jason and Joshua Ferris off of the Grand Prix last year and kept them on the Junior Grand Prix. And we don't seem to pick the right people. It was almost like if you looked at 2012 Worlds, both Adam Rippon and Jeremy didn't do well. And it was like they didn't learn. Like they didn't figure, being like, okay, this is happening.
What was Jeremy at 2012? He was like 8th or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
he still did better than here.
I know, but if you look, you could see like, okay, these guys are not in a position to medal. Like this is likely not going to happen. Why did we give Ryan Bradley a national title in 2011 when Ricky Dornbush outskated him? And then Ricky never looked as motivated after that. And Ricky wiped the floor with him at Worlds, and like, was he then not motivated? Should we have promoted him sooner? And it's like we keep having these personal narratives of triumphs, but they're not leading to competitive results.
Okay, so I have a lot of questions for you.
Okay.
JP. So, for a federation, it's my question is what is their responsibility and how much does that really affect the skaters? So in these past 4 years, I don't know that it was about us promoting the wrong skater, but not having many skaters to promote.
We have talent. There is talent in there.
But I think the talent for us is an upcoming talent. This future of Joshua Ferris, Jason Brown, Nathan Chen, this is huge for us.
But I think Max is preparing them and grooming them sooner the way they do in other countries. And one of the things I notice is that you look at someone like Mitch Moyer, who's in charge of the athlete development. Well, what are his credentials? Tarasova kind of has that role in Russia. She has all of this knowledge and experience. And there are all of these volunteers who maybe weren't a top-level skater. And there are all these archetypes. And they post on Twitter. There are a couple. And you can see that they're angling with a job in the Federation. Only they don't have that knowledge of a John Nix. And then there's someone like Tammy Gamble has a ton of talented skaters, but she has so many that she's gone. And then does she have someone to work with her skaters when she is gone? Because there's so much, so much stealing of students that goes on, and she has her students work with Justin Dillon and he's primarily a choreographer. But then who's really coaching them? When Frank leaves town, he has Robert Taylor work with his students, and Robert was one of his former students who has the same technique. So it's all on the same line. It's all on the same line, and they're still getting the same consistent thing. And is the Federation not supporting those athletes enough and giving them the right
I,
tools.
I guess I don't understand how important the federation should or shouldn't be. Does promoting Jason Brown a year ago versus this year, does that make a big difference for him in his ability, or is it for us about a lack of coaches?
Well, it's both. If you look at, so Jenny talked about when she only got the one Grand Prix and they sent her to Cup of Russia that she knew that she was done. And another reason she knew that she was done was financial, because they all know how much each other is making. And when they used to have those pro-ams, she made a certain benchmark when she won Junior Worlds. Well, at the end, she knew how much Kimmy Meisner was making, and she knew what she was making, and that communicates a message to
how they feel about
you. And there's, I mean, I think that it does impact skaters, unfortunately, that is another role. They all have the same agents. Word gets around, it spreads. So I think that it's, certainly who we bet on. But one person I don't think we were going to bet on a couple weeks ago was Denis Ten at Four Continents. He had
what a turnaround,
as he did last year after Four Continents. And to pull up to the bronze medal here, what did you make of his performance?
The minute he started, I was like, oh, he's fine. It's just some weird thing. They find a pocket mentally, physically, and they're just ready to go. And the minute he took the ice, I was like, oh, he might do this. Now, Frank did not look pleased with those numbers in the long. He was looking pretty skeptical, but they held up all night. I don't know if they were supposed to. I don't know if the judges themselves had intended them to hold up all night, but they did.
I mean, his components weren't great.
Yeah, I mean, they could have helped more, but he delivered on a night when really no one else did. So,
he really did have the performance of the night.
Yeah. And it was improved greatly from Four Continents. But remember,
you talk about a coach with experience, how Frank turned that around twice now. And I think the interesting point is that Denis has not really been able to work with Frank throughout the year because he's had injuries and he's been in Kazakhstan, then he had visa issues and boot problems and all of this stuff. And Frank, they had uninterrupted practice in Germany with Frank, Denis, and Gracie, and he was able to turn it around really quickly. And that's, I think, an experienced coach, and that's someone who figured out.
Well, because Denis was one of those people. I was like, well, we talk about how important the federation is. Well, what on earth is the federation in Kazakhstan doing to help Denis? I don't know, but it actually doesn't matter because Frank Carroll is his federation.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So he does see to all of these things that really made a huge difference in the end.
Yeah, I think Denis is someone that doesn't intrinsically have that same ego as someone else, and you could see that he has doubt issues and consistency issues, but they were able to pull that off, and I thought it was a great performance. And I think that if he can work out the number of dramas that he has throughout a season and just prepare more consistently, he's someone who would be challenge for a gold medal.
Do you think he would have been in a bronze medal position had he not been silver last year?
Maybe not, but I don't think so. I think that helped. People now see him as a potential medalist.
I think it did too, yeah.
But everyone, I think, has always seen his talent, but have waited for it to materialize. But I think that now after he has a world medal and an Olympic medal,
there's no denying that.
And it'll keep his skating alive in Kazakhstan, which, they really got behind his success. And that was a new level of pressure he had to adjust to. But I think that he has wonderful technique. I actually would like to see him perform outwardly a little bit more and have a little bit more of that bravado that Chan has or that Plushenko has in Hanyu. And I think he could challenge for that top spot. But let's move on to the final group. Okay, it started with Javier Fernandez from Spain, and he was in third place after the short. Some people felt that his marks were too high on the short. Others, thought that he deserved to be there. What was your take on Javier at the Olympics?
As just an observer, he is not my favorite. I respond to his charm. He's, good looking. He has like a great personality on the ice and these sorts of things, but I don't really respond to his skating. I tend to prefer the more artistic skaters, and he is not that. He is a very talented jumper. It looks like he'd be fun to go out drinking with, but I don't know that I really wanted to see him as a bronze medalist in the Olympics. And they did a bunch of fluff pieces on him, and his family looked all fun and exciting. And his The second mark was too high, I think, for him. And you want to talk about coaches catering styles. I mean, even Brian Orser early on was like, I have to train Hanyu very differently than I have to train Javier. And they said, you know, after the short, Brian had to be like, Javier, get it together. Hello, you know, and Javier, with a little more focus, probably could have taken that bronze. I think the judges were trying to set it up so that he could have, and he kind of let it slip, as did, you know, a whole bunch of other people that evening. But I cannot stand that long program personally. It just doesn't. It doesn't do it for me, and the short program barely does it for me. You know. But he's very talented. But he strikes me as someone who's doing it. He's having a good time. Yeah. You know, I feel like he probably enjoys his skating time more than other people do. It just doesn't seem very focused. No. Yeah.
I think, going forward, they're going to have to figure out with him how to get him focused. Because we saw how well he could do at Europeans, but I mean, he just didn't seem to have that same level of intensity. He lost a lot of points.
It looked like he had no pressure because he was like, yeah, whatever.
Which is charming and great to watch. I think he's a wonderful show skater, and he's a wonderful personality for the sport. He's someone that he's fun to watch, and he's fun to cover.
It was a little Philippe Candeloro-esque.
Yeah. Especially because there were so many men who had the technical goods and had the artistic component this time around. Hanyu, Chan, Denis Ten, Jeremy Abbott, Jason Brown. I mean,
Takahashi.
And when he was up against all of these really wonderful programs, and perhaps the men aren't usually that artistic across the board.
Yeah, it was more glaring when he was.
It was really glaring. And I think that for Javier, going like that, it has a limited shelf life. You know,
it was better than the Plushenko moment, but yeah. Oh wait, before we go, because he didn't even make the broadcast, what did you think, Joubert?
Well, I thought for Joubert that it was great that he skated well, but
if this was the 90s, he would have made a major splash.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people that are big fans of him. He's a sentimental favorite. He has the jumps, and I think people really do want to see jumps in men's skating. I just don't think that he has the rest, and I think that if you have a system, you have to use it, and I don't think that he fulfills all of the different elements of skating, especially not anymore.
It was interesting because...
But I think he's a great champion and a great skater. I just don't think that he's artistically...
It just isn't enough.
Yeah.
Anymore. Yeah. He first of all, he came out in that see-through stripper shirt or whatever he was wearing. Which reminded us, do you remember that documentary, that French documentary showing him in a Speedo doing the Stairmaster or something? I was like, this is just that
Speedo that he was wearing.
Yes, I was like, this is that, but on Olympic ice. Gee whiz. And Tara, Johnny, and Terry Gannon were very impressed. Yeah, they were big. They were big Brian Joubert fans, but the time had passed for sure. I mean, and the thing is, now I don't know much about Tom Z personally, but he is very adamant to be on a crusade about skating not as art but as sport.
Yeah,
and I do not believe that that skating has to be anti-sport to also be art. It's the marriage of the two that we're looking for. But then you see someone like Joubert. He threw out 2 quads that were clean, I think, in the long, and it doesn't matter.
Do you ever notice though that it's only the skating public or the skaters that have this certain homophobia or thing where they think that it needs to be about the jumps, it needs to be masculine, and it's only ever the skaters that say that? I feel like the general public is like, yes, all the skaters are gay, or most of them are gay. Get over it. I want to watch something cool.
Or you see someone like Plushenko come out in that costume, and Plushenko is very virile. He is a powerful skater. Yes. He is a womanizer for sure. And I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah. He's like a man's man. Yeah. But then he came out wearing that. It looked gayer than anything any gay skater was wearing. You know what I mean? It's like,
but who cares?
I don't understand why.
I don't think that the public cares? If
agree.
they weren't going to put their men in skating because they think that it's gay, someone doing a quad versus not, it's really not going to change their opinion that much. It's not going to break down 40 years of skating being perceived in a certain way. They're not going to suddenly be like, this is a manly sport. Like, that's just not going to
And my
happen.
experience is it has so much less to do with the skating and so much more to do with the costumes.
Yes.
For the average person in the public to be like, oh my goodness, that's so effeminate. It's because someone's wearing sequins.
Yeah.
It's no one wears sequins, even if I mean, what? It doesn't matter if Rudy Galindo goes out and is artistic as can be, but he's just wearing that black onesie or whatever he wore. We don't care. We don't know that it's feminine or masculine. I don't know.
But I just think that like people, their opinion of skating is like, the skaters have always been gay. John Curry was gay. Tyler Cranston, and people loved them and thought and appreciated their talent, and whether they wanted their sons to be skating or not.
So let it go and just skate beautifully. Yeah, exactly.
Who the hell?
And powerfully.
Yeah.
You can't. We've proven you can't be one. And you can't be just the other. You need both. So Joubert, yeah, okay, good for you.
Is someone
you
going to say that Brian Boitano isn't a powerful skater? I mean, he's incredibly powerful, and he's gay. And I think that it's a ridiculous conversation that only skaters seem to be having.
Or preoccupied with.
Yes, and it's their own obsession. But talking about sequins, Daisuke Takahashi wore quite a few in the free skate to his Beatles medley. I didn't know that was going on in Liverpool, but I was certainly entertained by his performance. It's not my favorite program of his. The short certainly is. What did you make of his performance here?
There's no denying the quality of someone like Patrick Chan's skating.
Yeah.
But for me, he is my favorite skater, I think, of this generation. And I am always disappointed that he didn't carry the world title in 2012 with that gorgeous long. Yeah. And the minute he just takes the ice, even when I saw it in Detroit in Skate America this year, he wasn't a factor. The jumps were difficult for him and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. You could literally watch him do crossovers around the ice arena, and it is so gorgeous. Yes. Just his deportment, his feeling, it was just, God, this is beautiful, and I could watch it all day. Yeah, it's a Beatles medley. And you know what? When you are a champion who may be past your prime, don't skate to yesterday. Oh, my goodness. It was like when another certain skater at Nationals skated to memories. Memories of what? The time you won a medal? I don't, it's just, don't invite the comparison. So, but even though, it was the Beatles program and blah, 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 just the way he moves, he could have just been skating to nothing. And I so respond to it in a guttural way. And it was a shame about some of the jumps but I'm glad he did as well as he did. NHK was pretty magical for him this year. And so I'll take that as this season's real highlight.
I mean, I think you wonder, could Oda have done better? Maybe.
Maybe.
Could Kazuka have? I don't think so. I think for Takahashi, it was just wonderful to watch him skate. He did relatively well. He didn't mop up the ice, and I thought it was a nice way to end his career. I was certainly glad to see him skate at the Olympic Games. I thought that he wasn't practicing that well, but he did the best I think we could have really expected him. I didn't expect
a very respectable job. Yeah. I would have loved for one to have happened, but
I didn't think it was going to.
It was just nice to see him skate one more time because I am that responsive to his skating. So.
Yeah, I think he was an important skater.
He is. Yes. He makes a difference. We will remember his skating. Placements aside, when the next generation comes around, where other champions of this era, we may not remember their skating. We may not remember their program that got them more titles.
When I was thinking back to Nagano, I was thinking like, do any of those programs still matter? And I don't watch many of those programs. And I'm thinking I would actually watch many of these men skate because
some of the moments in Nagano mattered. Yes. But not necessarily the programs as pieces of art.
Skaters were kind of boring artistically, or they.
Well, now that we realize how far we could push the limits, which is actually also another big point that's been coming up in these Olympics is, have we pushed the limits too far?
I do think that we have reached a certain part when we'll get into our next skater Hanyu, where is it possible to do 3 quads and 2 triple axles and still have energy and be artistic and not do all crossovers? And there's a certain balance, and I think that we are reaching the physical limit in terms of what one can do in a 4.5-minute program. I believe that someone can do a quadruple Lutz. Can they do a quadruple Lutz and then do all the difficult spins and then do all of the edges and footwork required without getting overmarked? I think that there's a balance there that we're really approaching, and I think
we're dangerously close. And then it becomes, even when Hanyu fell on the opening, was it the quadruple sow that he fell on in the beginning?
All year on,
but he still walked away with just as many points as he got for his Lutz.
Yeah.
So and then the
problem with the system.
As Dick Button will tell you, when we watch skating, when casual fans watch skating, falls are traumatizing to them. And right now, all they see, especially in this particular men's event, is just a splat fest.
Yeah.
And are we missing the point if we're trying to get so many points, do too many difficult things that you get rewarded for doing them poorly, and then to the casual fan, everyone's just terrible these days.
It was interesting watching with casual fans. I watched the men's with a bunch of people who have no interest in skating, and they would turn it off. But then once it came on, then they were watching it, and the falls were definitely, I think, jarring for the public, but they did appreciate, Jeremy, who did well, and they were into Jason Brown's performance, and I think that there is a level of interest that people still have. But for Hanyu, I felt that he didn't give up on the performance.
He didn't. Yeah, I was nervous. He still
performed. But I think that there's something where I'm really surprised that they loaded his program with more content when he's had issues for years with looking like he's about to die at the end of the program. I mean, his choreographic step sequence, it's almost like he's falling over when he does that twizzle, and he's gasping for breath, and he always is like this at the end of his program when he's doing the choreographic step. And I'm like, should that probably be a deduction? Is he getting overmarked? To me...
Is that over-dramatic? Or do you think that's real? He's obviously well-trained. So
he's intense, but by the end of the program, he is always dying. But at the same point, he's doing 2 triple axles in the second half. Like, of course he's going to be exhausted.
Yeah, exactly.
And
not just doing a rink full of crossovers before each one. I mean,
he does do a lot of crossovers at the end of that program. He is doing a lot, where when you watch Patrick, he's not, and Hanyu's just whole body language does kind of get shifts throughout the program. You could tell he was exhausted. I mean, Olympic pressure is exhausting, I would imagine, more so than any other competition. I mean, he looked really winded there, but he did, I think, but you have to look at the points. He won because of those points. The fact that he landed those triple axles, well, their strategy worked. A win is a win, even if it wasn't a beautiful one. But were you surprised that Patrick Chan didn't pull it off after Hanyu went out, left the door wide open for Patrick to take it? Were you surprised that Patrick didn't?
I don't think Patrick's issues with skating rocky programs versus clean programs has to do with other people. Mm-hmm. I think it always has to do with something about Patrick. Mm-hmm. I don't think it matters if Hanyu had nailed the program or if it was what it was. I think he was going to skate the same way regardless. It's something about Patrick and Patrick's expectations and pressures and nerves and head game or whatever. I think it didn't matter what was happening around him. I don't think he saw an opportunity. I don't think he felt, I think the writing was on the wall. He was going to deliver that program that way, no matter what Hanyu had done.
It would be interesting to see him throughout the day, what his mindset was in the morning when he woke up versus, if he did hear Hanyu's marks and that did impact him, because obviously you do hear a crowd groan. When that many people groan, you do hear it.
Well, he was on the ice when the score was read, wasn't he? Yeah, I mean, he knows exactly what that meant. He might have
been. There's a difference between playing to win and playing not to lose, and maybe his mindset shifted.
Well, we saw Hanyu, and the whole warm-up group for those guys was weird.
Yeah.
The energy was weird.
You knew it was going to be a bad night. You knew it.
Is that the audience, that's sending a vibe? Is that one skater or a couple skaters, and then it affects the entire ice because you just sense like a strange energy, but everyone was like almost colliding Everyone went tight, weird jumps. It was not the right vibe for what we were hoping for.
Tim always says that everyone's either going to skate well or just be a splat fest, and it was certainly true.
They've all synced up in their energy. Yeah.
I mean, I think it does impact some people, but it's also how you let it affect you. But I think for Patrick, there's been so much more about his past wins and the fact that he won with mistakes and before that has to creep in at some level. Just the drama
and arguably
surrounding
didn't
him.
Deserve, how many? He was three-time world champion going in, and arguably he didn't deserve two of those, in my opinion. I wanted Takahashi in Nice, and I wanted Denis Ten in wherever
London.
they were. London. Yeah, I was like, is that right? So I don't know. And he seemed oddly. I don't know. I'm sure he was devastated. Yeah. But he seemed oddly at peace when he finished.
Patrick's really smart. I think he's one of those people that if you hear him speak, it comes across much better than if you just read it, like the written word on the page.
Oh my gosh. Well, he said Andrea Joyce, whatever.
I thought his interview with her was brilliant. I mean,
well, although he slipped up once because he was like, you know what? Not everyone has a bad day, even the best. And it was insinuation like, I'm the best and even I have a bad day.
He knows. I mean, there is that part of him that there is that ego there. I mean, I think you have to have one to be at that level.
It has to be an ego.
I mean, Jeremy has one too. I mean, at times it creeps out. But I think with Patrick, you listen to him speak, it's much better. I mean, what he said about the fact that he's three-time world champion and that the fact that he didn't win one competition doesn't ruin his entire career. And I think that that's correct. You know, I don't look at Kurt Browning less because he doesn't have an Olympic gold medal. I still think he was amazing, you know, and the lead skater of the early 90s.
We all will talk about Kurt Browning skating for the rest of the life, or for the rest of skating. We don't remember Alexei Ormanov's performance necessarily, you know, or, you know.
I think that, you know, you look at the course of a career, and I certainly think that's true with Patrick. You look at him, though, and I felt like this year it wasn't – there was a shift going on where Hanyu was the youth and that energy and was coming up, and Patrick was almost trying to hang on, whereas his approach was he did 2 quads and 1 triple axel, and Hanyu loaded his program.
I wondered after that first combination, I was like, is this it? Has this set the tone? We expected
it was the most gorgeous combination of the Olympics, of Patrick's first
I was like, this may be the one.
You know, he said that he likes to think that no one can do a quad like him, and he's right. I mean, for a lot of, I mean, he is right. I think he knows how good he is, if you like it or hate it. He is really good. And but I don't think that he's at the peak of his ability. If you look
if this was a lifetime achievement award versus an Olympic medal, I do believe Patrick earns the award for being the best skater in the world at this moment. But if you're not delivering on the night, then it becomes about something else. So what are we rewarding? Are we rewarding the skater we know who really is the best skater in the world right now? Yeah. Or what? You know what I mean? Overall ability doesn't help if you can't deliver on that night, which is the double-edged sword of the Olympics, you know, because great talents of their generation don't have a gold medal, but people that took advantage of the night do, you know.
I think for Hanyu, I mean, he's going to keep skating alive, obviously, in Japan with that level of success, so that's good.
Is he going to keep skating? Has he mentioned? Do we know?
I mean, I think he's so young.
I mean, skating, obviously. Is he going to keep competing?
I would imagine that he would. I mean, he has a chance. He probably doesn't want to go out with his Olympic performance.
Being lackluster.
Lackluster. I think he's pretty competitive, and I think he's talented enough to keep going and win 2 Olympic gold medals, and I think that.
What do you feel about his chances at Worlds? Do you think he'll do Worlds, or do you think media is going to be such?
I don't know.
I mean, hoopla that maybe it'll be.
The one thing is that the international competitors sometimes seem to be. They don't seem to always necessarily think in 4-year cycles the way Americans do, and sometimes they'll retire mid-quad, you know, or something like that. So I think that could be a factor as well. I think that. I do think that we'll see Hanyu continue to compete. I mean, he is so young.
Something about this season seemed so peaking.
Yes.
For him, that I was like, oh goodness, are you going to be able to?
You can't say that he's really a flash in the pan because he has been, you know, on the world stage in the mix for a couple of years. You know, this is not one of those won the gold medal and escape type wins.
See you later. I'm going to take advantage of this while I can. Yeah. Interesting.
Now, do you think that Peter Liebers will continue being successful? I mean, we just got introduced to him like last week, you know, as a serious
right?
contender. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say those short programs were impressive.
Yeah.
But the long obviously faltered.
The music was god awful. Really.
The costume wasn't great, maybe matched the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not invested.
Yeah.
I was really impressed because I was like, wow, that guy delivered as if he'd been delivering for the past 4 years and was a real threat and a real part of this conversation. And I was like, but it sort of faltered in the long, but again, so did everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It'll be intriguing to see if this propels him or if he takes this as his moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that on the Russian TV, Tarasova really thinks that the next 4 years are going to belong to Jason Brown. She certainly thinks that it's his time. He gave a nervous performance, and I think it's interesting with Jason if he will build upon this, or is this a sign that he has some issues. I think it's interesting is that, you know, you talk about how he wasn't on the Grand Prix last year, but he is this year, and he hasn't had that level of experience.
It is senior international season. Yeah, I mean, that is insane. I mean, even the ones that have, even the young ones that have surprised us before have at least had 2 seasons. You know what I mean? Like going into the Olympic season is their second season. And he did do well also in the team event.
Yeah.
It got even more nervous because, again, suddenly someone who should have been thrilled with top 10 in this moment was suddenly thrust as America's hope for a medal.
Because he's so popular now.
And it's just like, you know, we should expect the most of our athletes. And I was let down. I wanted him to have a Boston moment and sneak in and at least be 4th or something like that. But at the end of the day, it wasn't his, it should not have been his cross to bear, this potential medal. He was there. He's young. He's very talented. He never stopped performing. You know, he did the team event and this whole event. I really, really hope that he goes to Worlds.
Yeah, I do too.
I
think that he needs to build on this experience. If he is,
and clearly he and Max will come up with a stronger team that will. We don't want another personal victory and an emotional moment for Jeremy. Now it's about function. You know, now it's not about a personal triumph. It's about actually getting 3 spots.
Yeah, I think
so
that the federation
Max, Jason, and Jason can go next year.
I think it was the worst finish since 36 or something. And I think that they need to look at the situation and learn from it. And it's just, you know, I think in America we want results, and that's just the way our system
and it's the same results as our pairs. I mean, we've had droughts of no male medals before. You know what I mean? It was between Brian and Timmy G. I mean, we had a bunch of letdowns, but we were always in the conversation. Yeah, we've taken ourselves out of the conversation, and we should really be putting ourselves back in.
Yeah, I think with Jason, it's interesting. You know, we've seen. He's only really looked nervous twice, where he's been in a new situation, a difficult situation where he would, I mean, a couple times at Nationals, he was not as high as he could have finished. But I think if you look at Skate America this year, he was in a position after the short program where a medal was on the table and he did not deliver in the long program. The next time in Paris, he did. This time, you know, it happened to, you know, he had the one mistake in the team event. He came back in the short here and did well, but then he was in a new situation again, and the nerves got to best. And he's someone, his jump technique really relies on him being super relaxed. The second he gets tight, those jumps get under-rotated every time he gets tight. And that's something he's really going to need to work on, especially if he doesn't. He needs the quad, obviously. It's going to happen.
The thing that makes me hopeful is his disposition and his overall personality.
He's very positive. He seems to have a lot of
confident positivity. Yeah. And I think that's, and who knows how they may now alter the construction of his programs. I hope he continues to use Roheen because those programs are obviously very effective, very point getting. The judges are definitely starting to give him respect. They gave him high second marks. And I think the sky is the limit for him. But it's something about his personality and his overall demeanor, his passion for the sport, his excitement about doing well, his, you know, I feel like these are all good signs. It's not dark. It's not, why not? You know what I mean? Everything looks like he will only continue to grow. I hope. And people say the quad is coming.
Yeah.
that
Nope.
it's in the practices. It's just waiting. Maybe other people should have been waiting too, or not putting things in. But I respect that. So we'll see
I
what
definitely
happens.
think by the Grand Prix next year, if I think he's someone where he'll hopefully be on that post-Olympic tour, perform, have the time of his life, and then get back into training. And
Experience. I mean, this experience he's had this season alone will put him at such an advantage.
Well, Tom Collins always talked about what an advantage it was that Michelle Kwan got to do those shows and perform in front of an audience all the time. And I think if you look at someone like Jason, what he feeds off of, that could be a really good thing. And I think people are going to want to see him skate. I certainly do. Whereas before, Stars and Ice is coming to town, and I said, no. No, I don't need to see that.
Well, especially because it's like you've discussed many times on here, is that the people let the standard of skating slip so much.
Yeah.
But as someone who is currently competing and is born to perform, then I'd go there and I wouldn't see an embarrassing show program that made me embarrassed to like skating. I'd see someone who was really giving it his all, and that crowd loves him, even with all those tight moments and all this sort of stuff. People were upset that they didn't count the last triple loop
because he did the
because of the false exit,
and I bet he will never do that again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but that mentality is a hopeful sign.
Yes.
It was like, oh, shoot.
He didn't
okay,
wilt.
I can do this again.
Dick Button's really into wilting. Though he had nerves, he did not wilt. And I think overall...
And he performed.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it came down to the rotations of the jumps and the points, for him. So I think in the future, I think it is bright for him. I think that give him 2 years and we could have... someone in the medal conversation again. But we certainly want to know what you all have to think. We hope that you're skating better than some of the men did in the long program last night. So as always, we want you to catch your breath like Yuzuru Hanyu. Hold that edge for dear life.
Sexy. Yeah, in your see-through stripper shirt during the men's long program, a la Brian Joubert.
Bye, guys.
Bye.